So, Stu, if you were reading the news today, what would your impression of the Elon Musk, Donald Trump spaces conversation be?
Well, they had technical problems, Glenn. That was the main takeaway. Yeah. They started late, and that was the most important thing out of the conversation.
Yes.
They did not start on time.
Right. That's not actually what happened. Elon Musk said that the spaces came under a massive coordinated DDoS denial of service attack. With everything that is going on in the world, I tend to believe that, but there's not a single story in the mainstream media that is reporting that. They're just saying he has a failed platform. And that, this is exactly what happened with Ron DeSantis, yada, yada. And I believe when Ron DeSantis did it, it probably wasn't prime time. But you don't do that twice. You know what I mean? He said he was testing the servers. They could have handled 8 million people. That's as high as they tested yesterday, but said everything was fine. And there ended up being about 1 million live, according to the reports, but I don't know what to believe anymore. And I was shocked that they didn't spend more time on that and more time on what they were threatened with, what Elon Musk was threatened with by the European Union yesterday. I don't know if you've seen this letter to Elon Musk, but I just want to read some of it. It's quite long. It's a full page, but it's worth hearing in America. Dear Mr. Musk, I'm writing you in the context of recent events in the United Kingdom and in relation to the planned broadcast on your platform X of a live conversation between a U.S. presidential candidate and yourself, which will also be accessible to users in the EU. Okay. Well, there's a lot of things that happen on CNN that are available to European users. Why is Elon Musk being singled out? And Elon Musk invited Kamala Harris to do the same thing with her. She turned it down. I understand that you're currently doing a stress test of the platform. In this context, I'm compelled to remind you of the due diligence obligations set out in the Digital Services Act. This is just an absolute draconian act on free speech in the European Union. The left has found a way to outsource freedom of speech, the suppression of freedom of speech. Our government doesn't have to do it because the EU can now do it to us. As the individual entity ultimately controlling a platform with over 300 million users worldwide, which is 1/3 in the EU, that has been designated as a very large online platform, you have the legal obligation to ensure X's compliance with EU laws and, in particular, the Digital Services Act in the EU. This notably means ensuring, on one hand, that freedom of expression and information, including media freedom and pluralism, are effectively protected, and on the other hand, that all proportionate and effective mitigation measures are put into place regarding the amplification of harmful content in connection with relevant events, including live streaming, which, if unaddressed, might increase the risk profile of X and generate detrimental effects on civil discourse and public security. This is important against the background of recent example of public unrest brought about by the amplification of content that promotes hatred, disorder, incitement to violence, or certain instances of disinformation. Now, I want to remind you that the WEF, the World Economic Forum in Davos, what was their number one problem that they had to solve? It was bigger than global warming. It was bigger than any other thing. I mean, it came out of nowhere, and it was their number one problem that they needed to focus on. You remember what it was, Stu?
No, not off the top of my head.
Dis, and malinformation.
That's right.
They
All three.
said they had to stop this because it was going to be a problem this year. And so they had to do everything they could to stop it. And Klaus Schwab came out and said, you've got to trust the system. So you have to trust the system. What do you mean? Who are you speaking to? He was speaking to the leadership of the West. He was speaking to all of the prime ministers and the heads of security and everything else, saying, we've got this under control. Nobody abandon ship. You stay on board. We have this. This is a direct reflection of that. It also implies informing EU judicial and administrative authorities without undue delay on the measures taken to address their orders against content considered illegal according to national and EU law, taking timely, diligent, non-arbitrary, and objective action upon receipt of notices by users considering certain content illegal, and informing users concerning the measures taken upon receipt of the relevant notice, and publicly reporting about content moderation measures. This is absolutely incredible. I mean, this is V for Vendetta or 1984 kind of stuff. In the respect, I note that the DSA obligations apply without exceptions or discrimination to the moderation of the whole user community and content of X, including yourself as a user with over 190 million followers, which is accessible to EU users and should be fulfilled in line with the risk-based approach of the DSA, which requires greater due diligence in case of a foreseeable increase in the risk profile. So they're saying that he should not be running this interview because it's too risky. Now, let me ask you something, America. When has speech become too risky? What was it that Donald Trump said yesterday that was so scary? These people are trying to shut down your access to any other point of view. You'll notice they don't say anything when Democrats say elections are stolen and the Republicans are going to steal this one. Now, Donald Trump alluded to election fraud, but he was talking about making sure that when he's in office, we'll have paper ballots. We'll be able to count and have a record of everything we do. Where is the equal footing here on freedom of speech? Mike Lee tweeted, back to the EU, go to hell. That's like an F-word fun festival for Mike Lee to say that. This is absolutely unrecognizable to me in the West. It is making Saudi Arabia look like a kind of open place. They finish, let me clarify that any negative effect of illegal content on X in the EU, which could be attributed to the ineffectiveness of the way in which X applies the relevant provisions of the DSA, may be relevant in the context of the ongoing proceedings and the overall assessment of X compliance with EU law. This is in line with what has already been done in the recent past, for example, in relation to the repercussions and amplification of terrorist content. They're now speaking about terrorist content or content that incites violence, hate, and racism in the EU, such as the context of the recent riots in the United Kingdom. I urge you to promptly ensure the effectiveness of your systems and report measures taken to my team. My services and I will be extremely vigilant to any evidence that points to breaches of the DSA and will not hesitate to make full use of our toolbox, including by adopting interim measures should it be warranted to protect the EU citizen from serious harm. This is absolutely incredible. If you don't think they're serious, and if you don't think it affects us, let me play a Washington Post reporter yesterday afternoon. Cut 1.
Elon Musk is slated to interview Donald Trump tonight on X. I don't know if the president is going to tune in. Feel free to say if he is or not. But I think that misinformation on Twitter is not just a campaign issue. It's a America issue. What role does the White House or the president have in sort of stopping that, or stopping the spread of that, or sort of intervening in that? Some of that was about campaign misinformation, but it's a wider thing, right?
Yeah, no, and you've heard us talk about this many times from here, about the responsibilities that social media platforms have when it comes to misinformation, disinformation. Don't have anything to read out from here about specific ways that we're working on it, but we believe that they have the responsibility. These are private companies, so we're also mindful of that too.
They've outsourced it to the EU. Remember, Elon Musk is an incredible inventor. He has changed the car industry. He has changed it in numerous ways. He has changed the way we look at going to space. He's put a rocket up in space that returns to its platform on the water. He's one of the main guys from PayPal when that started. They loved him. They loved him. Until he bought the platform Twitter. Well, now you're an enemy because you won't play by our rules. Do you see how dystopian that is? Do you have the cut of the judge in England? Here's a judge sentencing a guy for something he posted on Facebook. Listen to this.
Went on to say that you did not want your money going to immigrants who, quote, rape our kids and get priority, end quote. This offence is so serious that an immediate custodial sentence is unavoidable. Would you stand, please? The sentence that I pass has been reduced by 1/3 to reflect your guilty plea. The sentence is one of 20 months imprisonment.
20 months in prison in the United Kingdom for posting, I don't want my money going to a bunch of immigrants who come here, rape our children, and then get off scot-free. What? Well, I don't either. That doesn't mean all immigrants or all illegals are doing that, but there is evidence of both of those things happening, of, especially in England, of illegals coming in and raping children and the government not doing anything about it. So that is not dis, or malinformation. That's information the government doesn't want you to talk about or remember.